Tottenham Hotspur have parted company with manager Igot Tudor with immediate effect. And honestly, what a mess that Spurs find themselves in right now. Because now they've sacked their second manager in the season, and now they're going to be looking for their third. What on earth is going on with Spurs? And ultimately, I do have to say that I think this is the correct decision to be made. Igot Tudor came in after Thomas Frank took charge of the first 26 games of the season. Spurs found themselves just 5 points above the relegation zone. I think it was the right decision to sack Thomas Frank. It was one that probably happened a little bit too late, if anything, though. And that's probably what led to them going for a firefighter like Igot Tudor, who had a reputation of doing well at Juventus when he came in at the back end of the season there, and previously at other clubs as well. And you thought to yourself, okay, maybe you could do a similar job at Spurs. But the issue is when you come in as a firefighter, you have to get results immediately. And that is absolutely not what he's got. 1 point in 15 in the Premier League. And that's just one draw in the 5 games he was in charge. And I think when he first came in, people were like, okay, he seems like he could do a decent job. He's come in and he speaks really well. Let's see what he can do. And obviously the first game, it's North London derby against Arsenal at home, and you think to yourself, right, this is the worst case scenario because Arsenal, who were absolutely rocking at the time, top of the Premier League, still are, and you think to yourself, okay, you probably expect Spurs to lose that game, and they did. And I know people say you can't lose to North London derby, but you absolutely can when you're Spurs and in the position that they're in. The issue is that the next game after that, in my opinion, Spurs had to get something from it, and that was Fulham away, and they lost 2-1. And I think after that game, I think pretty much everyone went, right, Spurs might be in a little bit of trouble here because they lose that game against Fulham, the one where you're banking on getting points in, especially after losing to Arsenal. And then you go into the third game and then they lose 3-1 at home to Crystal Palace. And then everyone's going, oh no, maybe we made a really, really bad decision. And I think the decision initially to sign Tudor, I don't know where that really came from because obviously it was heavily rumoured that Paratici really liked him, but he came into Spurs and then left in the January. So the fact that maybe the people who were left at Spurs were taking the advisement of Paratici, who's no longer involved in the club, that just seemed like a very strange decision in itself. But then you go into the Champions League, and that was another car crash in a season of car crashes. It was really, really bad. Losing 5-2 to Atletico Madrid away from home. And obviously, there were many, many errors in that game. There was also the fact that Anthony Kinski started ahead of Vicario. And that in itself, that decision was one that was, in hindsight, it's easy to say, but that looked really, really bad. And the fact that he made multiple errors in that game, which led to the 5-2 defeat. But then also, the decision to start him in that game, that one game only, if you were going to start Kinski against Atletico Madrid, surely would have given him the home game in the Premier League against Crystal Palace to see that maybe if he can handle the pressure, because that in itself was a pressure tie. The Champions League was actually the one where Spurs could go out there freely and express themselves. So he did make some questionable decisions at the time as well. I think obviously then substituting Kinski, that was another talking point which people were hammering him about. So all in all, it was really, really bad. But then you think to yourself, okay, they're going away to Liverpool who aren't great, but surely they're probably going to lose that one as well. But then, despite all the odds, they end up going to Anfield and getting a draw. And then you think to yourself, last minute of normal time in the 89th minute, they get themselves an equaliser at Richarlison. Then they go into that second leg against Atletico Madrid and think to yourself, surely they can't do anything there. But then they win the second leg 3-2. They end up getting knocked out, obviously, over both legs. But they beat Atletico Madrid at home. And think to yourself, right, you've got a point against Liverpool. We've got the win against Atletico Madrid. Maybe we're getting momentum at the right time here. And then you think to yourself, okay, the big one. The big, massive game before the international break. Nottingham Forest at home. The other side who's in and around there along with West Ham. At the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Surely we can do something here. We can win this game. And then the fans get fully behind the side. The side who have delivered absolutely nothing to these fans all season long. The fans decide we're going to get behind these players despite the fact that they're not performing on a weekly basis and the fact that when they're doing such a poor job for and representing Spurs, they get behind them. They organise this massive parade to welcome the bus. 15,000 Spurs fans turn up and show their encouragement and support for the Spurs team. They then go into the stadium all enthused, all enthusiastic about what they're about to see, all full of hope. And then Spurs go out there and lose 3-0 to Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, who for a long time can have only been able to score 1 or maybe 2 goals in the game in the Premier League. They go out there and score 3 against their relegation rivals. at that point, I think everyone knows that Igot Tudor probably has to go, and just a question of when, not if. And the 7 games he's taken charge in all competitions to 5 games in the Premier League. When you come in as a firefighting manager to try and help a team at near the bottom of the table, to try and help them escape the situation they're in, you have to get results. And so the fact that he only got 1 point, like I said, in 5 Premier League games, I think he had to go. And more, yes, on Tudor, that's his fault for not getting the best out of the players. Maybe his approach was wrong. He came across as if he was being a bit of a disciplinarian. Maybe in hindsight, he needed to put his arm around some of the players and go, it's going to be okay. You're fantastic players. Just give them a bit of confidence and go out there to express themselves. He clearly didn't do that. And I have to look at the decision makers above Igot Tudor as well, because yes, Paratici was probably the one who recommended him. That was what was heavily rumoured. But the likes of Lang, the likes of Vinkatesh, what on earth are they doing here? Because they were heavily involved in hiring Thomas Frank. They were involved in the decision to sack Thomas Frank. Maybe you could argue far too late, considering the situation the Spurs find themselves in right now. And then also the fact that now they've signed Tudor and then sacked Tudor as well. Spurs are in serious trouble of getting relegated, because when Tudor came in, it was 5 points above the relegation zone they were. Now they're just 1. And if you also look at the fixtures that Spurs have got coming up, honest to God, I mean, Sunderland away. And the funny thing is, Sunderland away is 2 weeks from now, because they're out of the FA Cup, they're out of the Champions League as well. They're not going to be playing. Yes, the international break finishes next weekend, and club football is going to be resuming. But Spurs don't play for another 2 weeks. So then they've got Sunderland away, which is not going to be easy. Brighton at home. Wolves away. Wolves are already relegated, but they will be looking at Spurs and going, you're an easy team for us to play against. Maybe we can try and get a scalp against you. Aston Villa away, who are going to be desperately trying to fight for the Champions League places. Leeds United at home, which is another relegation rival, and Leeds have not been doing well recently. Then Chelsea away, and Chelsea would love the chance to be involved in getting Spurs relegated. And the last game of the season is Everton at home, which David Moyes' men, who are a hard-working side, and that would be difficult as well. And so Spurs find themselves with 7 games to go, 7 games to save their season. And when you look at the points on the board, I think there's going to be quite a high season for points needed to stay in the Premier League. Not the mid-20s that we've seen in the previous years with the team newly promoted sides doing really poorly. I think it's going to be quite high. And I think to myself that with 7 games to go, I'm thinking Leeds, Nottingham Forest, Tottenham and West Ham are the ones who are still in the relegation race. And I think to myself that you maybe need 38, 39 points and minimum to stay in the Premier League this season, because everyone's looking at West Ham and the fact that they've only picked up, 5 points in the last 5 games, but how many more they're going to get? If they carry on like that, then they'll get another 7 points, that'll be 36. So Spurs need to get 37. They actually do need someone to come in and do a job. It's not a joke. It's not a job that anyone can do. And when you're looking at the replacements, maybe you go the permanent route. Would someone like Roberto De Zerbi, who is heavily linked with being the Spurs' favourite choice for the next permanent manager, would he come in now, or would you go, no, I want it in the summer when you guarantee safety? I'm not sure. Marco Silva, would he leave Fulham now? Yes, he's probably going to leave at the end of the season, but now, Pochettino, he's not going to take it right now. I mean, there's a couple of managers, like, would you go for Ryan Mason? I think Ryan Mason is probably the perfect choice that Spurs should have gone for after losing Thomas Frank. Someone who knows the players, who's been able to get a response from these players before, and someone who's young enough to be a bit more vibesy, and also has gone out there at West Brom, failed, it has to be said, and obviously didn't end up doing well and got sacked before the end of the season. But he's a young manager who's out there and is trying to prove himself in management. Whereas someone like Tim Sherwood is very clearly angling for the job, but at the same time, he's a pundit. He hasn't gone out there and done anything in management recently. So I don't think that it's appropriate for him to be getting the job, because I don't think that what has he done really recently to be the next Spurs manager? I don't think it should be him. Should it be like a Harry Redknapp? I think Harry Redknapp is similar to Ryan Mason, but I think Harry Redknapp is at the other end now, and with the likes of Van de Ven, Romero, I think it's just past Harry Redknapp, if I'm being completely honest, and especially at the Premier League now. Maybe in the Championship we've seen someone like Roy Hodgson go back to Bristol City, which I think is an incredible story, but I don't think in the Premier League anymore. Then looking at Sean Dyche, would he take a job at Spurs? I mean, I think he probably would, I think Sean Dyche would absolutely take this job because it'd be one of the biggest jobs I think he'd ever get. The chance to firefight at a team like Spurs, and then he can maybe make the argument, say, I want 18 months. I mean, I want the rest of the season and next season if you're going to hire me. And he would have that power over the Spurs board, and they would go, well, we need to stay in the Premier League, and maybe you could do that for us. So I think it is an absolute mess that Spurs find themselves in. But at least they've still got another 2 weeks to decide who to be the next manager. I wouldn't go for Adi Hutter. I think the fact that another foreign manager coming into the Premier League right now with the position that Spurs are in, I don't think it's the right choice. I think I would honestly just go for Ryan Mason or maybe Sean Dyche if he's willing to take it, and if he's only willing to take it at the end of the season. I mean, I think the perfect one, which I think is no chance of happening, is bringing back Ange Postecoglou for the rest of the season. I think the team is built for Ange, and it's one where you look back at the decision to sack him now, and you look, maybe they should have kept him. Maybe they should have kept him. Maybe they should have given him that third season that he was angling for as well. But yeah, I think to himself, if you can give a manager the job until the end of the season, yeah, give it to Ange, which I don't think would happen, but it'd be absolutely entertaining. But I think it should be Ryan Mason. And then apart from Ryan Mason, then give it to Sean Dyche. But it's an absolute mess that Spurs find themselves in. And Igot Tudor is no longer the manager of Tottenham Hotspur. He has decided to part company along with them by mutual consent.